10,000 interviews.
10,000 interviews. All right,
At least.
you guys.
I put in my Malcolm Gladwell time. I really have.
You have?
Oh, yeah. I've been doing interviews since 1988.
Since you were born? Okay. Welcome to Coffee is for Closers, everybody. I hope everyone is having an awesome Tuesday. We are here with special guest Ross, and today we are talking about his book because there is so much goodness in this. And last week, we've been talking about the difference between manipulation, persuasion, and there's just so much more to it. And he wrote a whole book on it. And I think I read part of it on a flight last week, and I'll read the other part on another flight at the end of this week. But for anyone who owns their own business, this is probably something you want to pick up. Unfortunately, for those of you that don't like sales, you signed up for a 24/7 sales career. And so we're here with Ross so he brings a lot of light to it and makes it a lot more fun for those of you that don't really like the whole sales approach or sales of doing your business, right? Because you started your own business thinking, well, I'm just going to do what I love every single day. But then you realize that you actually have to sell your services, or as Ross says, we're not selling. No. We are what?
Decision service technicians. You are not a salesperson. You're a decision service technician. Because the first lesson that I would like to give as you tune in carefully and really listen is this. You're never selling your product or service. You're always selling decisions and good feelings about decisions. So with that in mind, if you don't like the label salesperson, just think of yourself as a decision service technician.
Yes, a decision service technician.
Right.
But so Ross has this book, and this is what we are going to talk about today. It's Subtle Words That Sell.
And look at the subtitle there. Read that subtitle.
Okay. How to get your prospects to convince themselves to buy without pushing, pressuring, or pitching.
That's right.
Right. So we're going to talk about that today. I've got a lot of questions for Ross. If you are watching live and you have a question, please put it in the comments below and we will get to it at the end. So again, if you have a question for Ross, anything about sales, convincing, I hear convincing all the time. I'm like, you guys, we're not convincing anyone of anything. Being pushy, you all know I have sellwithoutsleaze.com, so you don't have to be pushy and sleazy and all that other nonsense. So that's what we're talking about today. But if you have a question.
Or schmaltzy. You don't have to lay on the schmaltz. We're both Jewish. You know what schmaltz is. Schmaltz is when you're really dramatic. And schmaltz,
I don't know what that means.
Oh, schmaltz literally means chicken fat. But figuratively it means, dramatizing it and hamming it up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
That's hilarious. Okay. So we're going to talk about, excuse me.
Hey, yeah. We're going to jockey for position.
Yes, we have to jockey for position since we have one microphone and we want to capture really the good audio quality so everyone listening can listen really well. Right. Okay, back to the program. So how to have your prospects really persuade themselves to work with you. That is what we're going to talk about today right here on Coffee is for Closers. So our recipe for today is a cup of wisdom, the subtle sales principles 1 through 6. Do you remember that chapter?
I'll just have to go through it.
Okay. We're going to go for the goal for the week, as I think having a goal of some sort would be very helpful for a lot of you that have been emailing in. And a little bit about Ross. I'll let him introduce yourself. I'll let him introduce himself so you guys know a little bit about him, his background, what he's been up to for the last 20, 30, 40 something years.
Hey, 40 my.
So I'll let him do that.
Wow, she surrendered the microphone to me. This is quite a momentous occasion. So I am Ross Jeffries. I'm known as the Wizard of Subtle Words That Sell. I've had a long and distinguished career doing many things, among which I have been a coach for lonely, geeky, clueless guys on how to find love, or at least the equivalent of that. And I am also a master hypnotist. I've been dealing with how language structures consciousness, shapes decisions and drives behavior on the unconscious level for 30 years. I am a master trainer and practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming, which again is the study of how language structures people's consciousness and decisions. And I am an author, and I also wrote one of the worst movies ever made, but we'll not discuss that here.
What movie?
It was called They Still Call Me Bruce, a sequel to a very bad movie called They Call Me Bruce. So if you ever want to torment yourself or a loved one or a date, just whip that thing out. I think you can get it on Netflix or something like that, and you can torment yourself.
That's awesome. Okay, so we're going to talk about the first principle of the subtle sales principles. So principle number 1. So, Ross, question for you.
Yes.
You're never actually selling a product or service, right? We're just enrolling and inviting our clients, and we're helping guide them to make a decision. Yes. But you're always selling decisions and good feelings about it, right?
Yes.
So I know you say that a lot, but can you share with us some real life examples for, let's just say, an accountant working with their clients?
Sure. So let me unpack this in general, and then we can get more specific about accountants, CPAs, what have you. You need to understand that nowadays people don't know how to make good decisions. It used to be that you just had to get people to trust you. Well, that's no longer sufficient. You have to get them to trust themselves in their own decision-making process. And here's why. First and foremost, people are distracted. They don't have the focus that they used to have. They don't have time to think things through. One of the challenges I would give you is go throughout the day and spend 20 minutes and see how many people have their smart device, I would call it their dumbed-down device, right in their faces. If I was any closer to this microphone, it would be touching my uvula. I can't get any closer to it, Michelle. So first of all, they're distracted. Second, when it comes to any decision involving money, people have a button on it because money is about survival. And most people don't understand how money works, and they certainly can't project into the future the benefits that they're going to receive from the investment that they make. And finally, there's good reason for people not to trust institutions. I remember many years ago, my CPA said, go and make a contribution to your retirement fund. Mm-hmm. So I walked into my trusty bank, Washington Mutual. Do you remember Washington Mutual Bank?
I do.
Well, Washington Mutual disappeared. It sank beneath the waves when the banks all crashed. So the old phrases like you can take it to the bank, no longer true. So people had that deep unconscious mistrust of institutions, and rightly so. And also remembered this. Unless you've invented anti-gravity or cold fusion, you're essentially selling a commodity. I'm sorry to say that. You can be proud of what you do. You should believe in what you're doing. And there's a million people doing it. So you need to understand what you're really selling is that decision. And they have to feel good about it. That's if I could. Just because someone makes a decision doesn't mean they're going to continue to feel good about it.
Right.
So creating a loop in the person's mind where every time they think about the decision, they bring up that good feeling, not only has stickability, it not only keeps them with you, but it's likely to get referrals. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what would an accountant do since all of their clients there's no time, they're on their devices, they're distracted.
Right.
Right? And they are now offering the opportunity for their clients, because they're selling a decision, to work with them. But not all accountants are offering commodity services. Some of them are actually offering very technical consulting services, financial future planning services, not financial planning, but like tax planning.
Right.
Right?
So let me get into the big mistake they're going to be making. If you avoid this mistake, you'll automatically do things right. If we're in a forest and all I do is say, Michelle, here are all the poisonous things you can't eat, by the process of elimination, you're going to know the things that you're going to eat. So let me talk about the big mistakes that these people are likely making. First and foremost, They're delving into data. They're giving specifics and data points, and that's just going to activate the left brain. I'm oversimplifying here, the critical part of the mind. What you want to do is activate the part of the mind that wants to believe, that wants to suspend disbelief. And to do that, you have to be vague. So this is going to sound like a mouthful, but I do go into the language in the book. But I would say, before we start today's consultation, I'm not sure at which points you might stop and find yourself thinking, wow, this is the direction where I really want to go. But as that's taking place, can I ask one favor? Can I ask that you please share with me the questions that naturally come up when a great decision is going to be made? Now, hold on there just 1 second. Did I say anything specific, Michelle?
No, this is as vague as it gets.
Yes. Now, when you're vague, the person will fill in the blanks with their own imagination. But I did something very clever there. I did two things. I said, can I ask one promise? Will you promise me you'll share? Now, promise and share are what I call implied relationship verbs. Do we promise things to people who we don't really trust, who we don't really intend to deliver on? Not really. Mm-mm. Do we share important things with people who we don't have some kind of relationship to? Mm-mm. No. So the minute they buy into those terms, you're already pre-framing that you have a relationship with that person. I also did something else very sophisticated and very clever. I said, please ask the questions that let you recognize a great decision is going to be made. What does that do to the unconscious mind?
It implies that they're going to make a great decision.
That's right, but it does something even more clever. It says to the unconscious mind, every time you raise that hand or every time you bring up a question, it also means that you're going to be making the great decision. So the behavior reinforces the meaning, and the meaning reinforces the behavior. I call that a post-hypnotic feed-forward loop. It's a technical hypnosis term, but it's actually quite easy to execute. You're actually not only putting suggestions in the person's mind, but you're getting them to repeat those suggestions over and over and over on the unconscious level every time they do that behavioral cue, which is to ask questions. And naturally, people are going to ask questions. Then and only then, once you program their mind how to receive the facts, data, and figures, should you give the facts, data, and figures. So don't deal in data.
Don't deal in data.
Dive into consciousness.
I love that. Don't deal with data. Dive into consciousness. Okay. So if the accountants are not going to dive into data and they're going to dive into the consciousness, what is one tip you have for them to implement today in their next client meeting? One thing for them to remember. Simple.
Simple? Okay. Well, I would say the first thing is get in the right frame of mind yourself. If you're in the frame of mind that says, I've got to close this deal, I've got to close this client, it's not going to work. Let me give you a metaphor, if I will.
We like those.
Okay. The difference between being invested and interested. So the idea is you're interested in the client, but you're invested in your skills. Michelle, I'll ask you a question. In a breakfast of bacon and eggs, which animal is invested and which one is merely interested? Well, the pig is invested and the chicken is interested. Do you understand what I'm saying? So be interested in the sale, but be invested in your skills. That went right over your head?
I'm lost.
Okay.
Let's simplify it for the accountants and Michelle.
Okay, for the accountants and Michelle. The most important thing is first get in the right frame of mind yourself.
I got that.
Now, the key is be interested in the client, but be invested in your skills.
Yes.
As someone who's going to be, quote, selling, close quotes. Do you understand? That means you have outcome independence.
Yes.
It's process-oriented. That's the first thing you should do. Get in the right frame of mind yourself.
And that is the same thing that I teach.
Well, we're both equal geniuses.
We are equal geniuses. He just phrases it with so much technicality that sometimes it goes right over my head.
Well,
so I appreciate it. And for everyone who likes the technicalities behind that, I think that's really important. But basically what I say, and you tell me,
precision, not technicality. It's just
precision,
being precise.
Precise, yes. But basically we're not getting attached to the outcome. In the big picture, we are there to help our clients, but we are not attached to the outcome of what our clients actually decide when they make their decision.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. Put a different way. So applause for you. You get a triple espresso since this is Coffee is for Closers.
I get a triple espresso. Okay, let's move on to principle number 2. I am working on my Spanish, and one of these days, one of these interviews is going to be 100% in Espanol. So, whatever you can get your prospects to imagine themselves, you will be perceived by them as being their own thought and will not be resisted. Do you remember that?
Of course I remember that.
All right. So you mentioned capturing and leading a prospect's imaginations and emotions before you present the facts, data, and figures. Even though I think we talked about we're not going to discuss a ton of data. Can you share a little bit about how that works in Michelle speak? Simple, not too technical.
I don't think any of this is technical, but the key to this is look. Supposing I said to the client, as a result of my services, you're going to be able to have the money to buy that island in Maui and your private jet.
Okay, now we're talking.
Now, here's the problem. What if your client doesn't want that? What if your client wants to be a miser and just have every penny saved up so they can have a hoard of cash that they roll around in before they die? You don't know. So we want to be vague. We want to be vague and say something along the lines, use what I call, I'm going to use a technical term, if I may.
Yeah, someone else thinks we're very technical, too.
Okay, well.
It's a bit technical. See, well, I'm not alone in this.
Well, but it's also brilliant, so just pay attention.
Let's keep going.
Okay, I'm going to use something that I call the false profession of ignorance. I'm going to say, as we're doing this meeting today, I don't know exactly what it is you can imagine for yourself you'd like to benefit from as a result of all this money that you're going to be saving. But as we continue to talk today, I just want to let you know I'm happy to be of service to you. Now, what does that cause them to do? It'll cause them to dive into their imagination and picture for themselves what it is they want from all of this. Mm-hmm. You have to be vague when you talk about their outcome, but specific when you talk about the plans and the data and how the program works. It's that simple. I know. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. This is a completely topsy-turvy, different way of looking at the process. So these ideas are going to sound foreign. And the idea is that the more different an idea stands from the way you're used to thinking or acting, the better the possibility that it can bring you results that are greater than what you're used to enjoying. So I just challenge you, when these ideas appear technical, get curious, feel challenged, because it's a sign that your unconscious mind is beginning to process in a different way.
Thank you. I like the simpler version of that. I appreciate it. So someone is saying, are we saying that you're questioning their outcome?
No, I'm not questioning their outcome. I'm just saying that I'm not going to tell them what their outcome is. Right. I'm going to let them fill in that blank.
Right. So if the accountant is meeting with their client, right, and they are going to save them a lot of money, but obviously having the house in Maui and all that other private jet is not important to that person. I always talk about asking questions to see what is important to that person, because at the end of the day, when we're offering our services, it's really about what it is for our clients. And I actually had this today in our class. One of our students, he was saying he likes to be the hub on the wheel of his firm. And all of his clients, he wants them to have someone do their payroll. He wants someone to do their finances. He wants someone to do their banking. And he finds that a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners out there actually don't have any of those components. And he'll really try to push them into doing all these things. But I explained to him, for that person, none of that's important to them yet. And that's not going to get someone to buy.
No, probably
right?
Most likely not.
Right. So what are a few good questions to help, we're using our accountants, so you guys get to benefit from this, for them to learn what questions to ask their clients? Okay. What's 2 good questions?
Okay.
Okay.
I would say something like this. I would say something like this. Michelle keeps telling me to be louder. I can sing it if you'd like. I would say something like, so as we're enjoying this conversation today, I'd just like to ask that you please give yourself permission to share with me what it is that you would like to benefit from as we move forward and do business today. Now, so I want you to notice that's giving them permission to ask questions, but it's giving the suggestion as we move forward and do business today. Did you hear the suggestion at the end?
Yeah, it was a subtle word that sold.
It was a phrase that was loaded with suggestions. As we move forward and do business today, move forward and do business today is a suggestion. So you can ask any of your questions. Let's have a little intellectual marriage here.
Okay.
Ask your questions, but add in my suggestion as we move forward and do business today.
Okay, so for example, you could say, so my student, if you're watching, you have a client, Kimberly. So Kimberly, where would you like your business to go in the next 6 to 12 months as
we move forward and work together today?
There you go. Right? So that's a great way to ask a question to a client and also have them answer it in their words.
And embed the suggestion that they are going to move forward and do business with you.
Right.
So take the questions and embed within them the suggestion that they're going to move forward. And people don't catch it on the conscious level. People make their decisions on the unconscious level. Even the smartest people want to believe they make it consciously, but 90% of our decisions are made on the unconscious level. Then we rationalize the rest of it. Sorry, humans, but we're not rational creatures.
Sorry, humans. Yes, we are all humans. So what other subtle suggestion words do you recommend we use? What are like 4 more?
4 more?
Yeah.
You're really, really demanding here.
Finally getting to know me.
I would say words. Well, I'll give you some. I knew who you were the minute I walked in. The first time. I like to use what I call presuppositions of time. So I would say before. That's a presupposition of time. Before we decide to move forward together today, and then I would say use another presupposition of time as we're exploring your decision to move forward together today, I would use when. That's another presupposition of time. When we conclude our meeting today, I'm not sure why you'll decide to move forward quickly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, those are great.
I know.
One more.
Great. Okay, I'll use a presupposition, an adverb presupposition.
Okay.
I'll combine it. So before we quickly decide to move forward today, I'm not sure what your reasons will be to naturally do that. So that's quickly and naturally. They're adverb presuppositions.
Gotta love the technicality in all this, right, guys?
It's not technicality. It's simple. Once you get it. Look, you know a foreign language. You're learning Spanish.
I'm learning Spanish, and it's muy difícil.
Okay. At first, learning a new language is difficult, but once you learn it, you have a degree of communicative power that you didn't have before you learned it.
I totally agree. Okay. Grab some water, grab some coffee. Who has a question? Put it in the comments below. We are taking a subtle timeout to get some water and see who has questions. How would you phrase it if it's a cold call in-person first meeting?
Oh, watch your language. Watch your metaphor. So is it really a cold call? Is the temperature minus 32 degrees? Is there ice between you and that person? It's not a cold call. It's an opportunity to expand what it is you have to offer. And I would even ask the question, how many unqualified people can I eliminate today and have fun doing it? Rather than, God, I don't want to make these cold calls. How many unqualified people can I easily eliminate today and have fun doing it? Don't ever use metaphors like cold or break the ice, because metaphors are powerful. They act as a canopy of consciousness underneath which all of our thoughts are embedded and shaped.
Cool. So that answers that. We got asked, are we both accountants? No, we are not accountants, but I teach accountants how to sell without selling, without being pushy, without being sleazy, and doing it from a place of service and really having empowered sales conversations. So I just like to work with accountants. I love accountants.
And I'm just your average, ordinary, super genius master hypnotist.
Yes, it's in the freezer aisles. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Okay. All right, back to the program. If you
I love how you get me back on track when I derail you.
He derails me all the time, but back on the program, back on track. So we've talked about 2 of the subtle principles. We are going to cruise through a few of the other ones because they're so good, or maybe we will just have to do a part number 2.
We'll Tom Cruise through them.
Yes, so... And if you haven't seen the movie that's about Ross, you can all watch this movie called Magnolia, where Tom Cruise plays his role. It's very good. So nowadays, prospects, like you said earlier, no longer trust their ability to actually make a good decision, or maybe they don't even know it. But why do you think that is the case? Like, why is it that human beings actually don't trust their ability to make a good, informed decision?
Well, I covered this already earlier on, but I'll add an additional reason if I can.
Just one.
Yeah, one. Nowadays, people have too many decisions they have to make. They just have too many thrown at them. Go on Facebook. How many ads do you see on Facebook in the space of 10 minutes? So there's too many, and there's so many decisions we have to make. We're just overwhelmed. So that's a third reason. They just have too many decisions they have to make. Look, we live in a world that's increasingly more and more complex, and humans are only built to hold 7. I think the science is we can only hold plus or minus 7 plus or minus 2 bits of data in our conscious mind at any given time. So people are just overwhelmed.
Wow. Okay. So since people are overwhelmed and you are saying that we need to create ourselves a state of focus, which is super important, right?
Correct.
And creating that state of focus with our prospects is very important. Can you share what are some ways that we can actually create that focus? Because that is your principle number 4.
It's really simple. We're going to use an embedded command, which is listen carefully. So it's very simple to do it. If I said, now, listen carefully to me, Michelle, you'd kick me where the sun don't shine.
Yeah, it'd send you out here.
Yeah. However, you could embed that command in a sentence. You can say, as we're working together today, I don't know in what ways you'll find yourself listening closely. Now, find yourself is an incredibly powerful phrase. If you toss out everything else I've taught today and just use the phrase find yourself, you will increase your business by 30%. That's an outrageous, audacious claim. So can I unpack that?
Yes.
Find yourself. What does it mean to find yourself doing something? Do you ever just find yourself, well, you won't, you're very disciplined, but did you ever just find yourself reaching for the refrigerator and you don't even remember what it is you were looking for? Or did you ever find yourself falling in love? Did you ever find yourself falling out of love? Find yourself implies a lack of conscious control or agency. It just implies it's irresistibly going to happen, whether they want it or not. It also means they can relax and not have to try to make it happen. So as we're working together today, I don't know at what point you'll find yourself listening very carefully to what I have to say in a way that serves you. But as that naturally takes place, feel free to ask the questions that, of course, are going to arise when a great decision is going to be made. Now, that is just packed with suggestions and techniques. However, in my book, Subtle Words That Sell, I do go over word for word how to do that.
And it's very technical because I've read these principles, but I think finding yourself and how he just explained it, especially for the accountants, right? Like you might find yourself making really great decisions today when we're working together. I said like 5, right?
Exactly.
So for our accountants, since we are focusing on them right now, what's another great way when they're meeting with a brand new prospect? Okay, they're not even a client yet. They're figuring out. I teach them this thing called the red rope policy, where they set up their boundaries and they get to pick and choose which clients they work with.
I love that.
Yeah. So let's say this person meets their policy and they want to actually work with this client, or, Kevin's right here and he's going to work with a new bar client and do all their filming. What is a good way to say with your find yourself, with a brand new prospect that you've never met before? This is the first meeting.
First thing I do is I would pace that. We always want to pace the situation and bring into the light what people are normally not going to talk about. So I would say, listen, I know this is our very first meeting, and sometimes it takes a while to feel totally comfortable in this discussion. But as you find yourself feeling more comfortable with me, please feel free to share those questions that are going to come up. And that's the part of building this relationship that we're going to enjoy continuing. Do you hear? We just keep coming back to the same thing. We recycle it because it's that powerful. You can use it across so many contexts.
Very good. Thank you. That was good, you guys. That anybody can use. If you own a business and you're going to meet with a client for the first time, you might want to go re-listen to this and write that one down.
Many times.
Repeat. Listen, download this episode, and repeat and listen many times. Okay, moving on to the subtle principle number 5.
Wow, look at that Spanish go.
Yeah, muy difícil. You say any and all objections are just cries for help. Okay, so everyone here who has owned a business or is working with clients has heard an objection. If you don't know what that is, that means the client is not really telling you no. They just have a lot of questions, or maybe they want to think about it, or they tell you you're too expensive, or they have to talk to their significant other, or they're just shopping around. You've probably heard them all. But you say that they're just cries, like cries that help make people make decisions to buy.
Correct.
Right? Okay. So can you share a scenario, non-technical lingo, when you had a client actually object to you or reached out for a cry for help, and what did you do to turn it around to actually work with them? Maybe like one of your corporate clients.
Sure.
Okay.
No problem. So I was offering some coaching, and I gave them my quote for my coaching, and they said it's too expensive. And I used what I call a counterexample. And I said, expensive. Expensive is when you lose out because you didn't have the right guidance to maximize the profits that you want to in this business. So actually we call this, I'm not going to give the technical term. I simply fed back his word and turned around the meaning of the objection. How's that?
Can you elaborate what fed back the word means?
Okay, we call it reflexively applied to the listener. So when he says, I need more time, I'll simply say, did you ever take a long time to make a decision and it still turned out to be wrong? Which is, by the way, everyone's experienced that, right? It's a truism. Maybe it's not about time, but about the clarity you need to move forward today. So with that in mind, what do I really need to clear up so you can make that decision and feel good today?
That I like.
I know.
That I like. That is good. Can you repeat that, please?
I'm spinning it off the top of my head. But I would say if someone says, I need more time, I would say something, or you start with a counterexample. Have you ever taken a long time to think something over and it still turned out to be the wrong decision? Maybe it's not about time, but about the clarity you need to feel good to move forward today. So with that in mind, what do you really need to have clarified for you to feel good to make that decision today? And then they're going to tell you what's really on their mind.
Right, because usually an objection is just something hiding really what the truth is.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Because we just naturally do it.
And they may not know what their truth is. People are on autopilot. They just may not even know what the truth is. Your job, part of your job is to guide them to that truth.
Yeah. Love it. And we didn't even have to get too technical on that one.
No, I don't think it's too technical. That's your opinion.
It's my opinion, but I'm also being of the opinion of everyone who might be listening right now.
Everyone thought the world was flat, didn't make it unround.
I know you talk about in your book, Objection Amnesia. Can you define what that is and what that is?
Yes, well, I just demonstrated it. The person thought it was about time. When I reframed it to be about clarity, the whole thought that was about time disappeared from their mind.
That is so crazy.
Isn't it crazy? I know.
Can you explain technically why that happens?
Yes, because here's why. The brain is a meaning-making machine. Humans are evolved to look for patterns in thinking. When you take the pattern that they have been thinking in and you pattern interrupt it, when you interrupt that pattern, you create a temporary window of suggestibility through which you can cleverly then guide them to think in the way you want them to think. Think of it in terms of conversational jujitsu. You're not pushing back. You're using their own momentum, because here's the takeaway. The mind works on repetition, familiarity, and momentum. We may be drawn to what's novel, but we run off of repetition, familiarity, and momentum. So why not use their familiarity with their objection and their momentum to guide them where we want them to go?
You're a genius.
Thank you. You're pretty smart yourself.
Thank you. All right, we are going to go cover principle number 6, okay? And Ross talks about empathy for your prospects, right?
Avoid it.
Avoid it, right. So can you explain why we avoid it? Because a lot of people get attached to their clients and who they want to help, and you share that you want to avoid it at all costs. So why is it important to avoid having empathy for our prospects? Like, why do you say that?
Let's make a distinction. I didn't say avoid it for your clients. I said avoid it for your prospects. And let's define the word empathy.
Okay.
Empathy means you're feeling what the other person is feeling. Now, that means if your prospect is feeling hesitant, you're going to start feeling hesitant. And they take over the emotional leadership of the entire interaction, and you definitely don't want that. Here's the skill. Again, this is a skill that no one knows about. It's not sexy. Lightning bolts don't come out of your fingertips, but it's a great one. And this applies in relationship too, personal relationship. If you can see where the other person is at without having to go there for yourself, then you have the capability to guide the interaction where you want it to go. You can simply make their response their first automatic response. And you don't get sucked into the response. It's just data that you can use.
Mm-hmm. What are a few ways to practice actually doing what you just said? Like, for everyone listening who's like, that was technical. What the heck, and how do I implement this?
Okay. It's very actually easy to do, but you don't do it with your thinking. You do it with your body. I teach this, forgive me, I teach it to guys who are terrified of women. And it's very simple. You ground into your feet. So if you start getting into a place where you feel triggered emotionally by your prospect, put 20% of your attention on the feeling of your feet on the ground. If you're sitting, put 20% of the attention on the feeling of your butt in the chair. That actually grounds your body, grounds that nervous energy, and it turns off the sympathetic nervous system. So we have two nervous systems. We have the sympathetic nervous system, which is designed to get us excited, get ready to fight or flee, and the parasympathetic nervous system that calms us down. So we ground into whatever we're touching, as far as our bottom or our feet. It turns on the parasympathetic nervous system, calms us down, and makes sure that we stay centered so we don't take on the other person's emotions. It's great to use if you're in a fight with your partner, too.
Really?
Oh, damn yeah.
Just take 20% of our thoughts and think about our butt sitting in a chair or our feet on the ground.
Well, there's a couple other things you can do, but you'll accuse me of being too technical.
Okay, we'll save the technical stuff for another day.
All right.
Let's just keep it simple. What's one more thing that people can do to get grounded?
Okay, here we go. defocus your vision so you're looking peripherally. Temporary, I don't mean cross your eyes, just defocus your vision. And the very simple, not technical explanation is when you're in that fight or flight mode, our vision narrows so we can put all our attention on that potential foe. So when you defocus, it sort of backs yourself out of that sympathetic nervous system overcharge.
This is some scientific stuff, everybody, huh?
Yes,
yeah.
I love science. Science is sexy.
Science is sexy, per Ross. Well, we are going to open it up for questions again. So if you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. Also, if you are watching this, we'd be grateful if you want to share it on your pages. If you want to get the book, it is in the comments below, and you can just go to the Amazon and make a purchase. And then if you like the book, you can leave them a review, because that's always a nice thing to do.
We have all 5 stars except one hater who said, this book is confusing. It's going straight in my trash.
Well, that's because maybe it's the technical stuff. But again, if you guys on Facebook can hit the share button and share it on your pages, that would be great. Thank you for listening and being here with us. If anyone has any questions, we're going to going once, going twice.
As you find yourself ready to ask me a question, you'll naturally and easily just type it in right now, won't you?
There was a lot of subtle words there in his, what are those called, the technical term?
Embedded commands, embedded suggestions, presuppositions of time, and adverb presuppositions.
My head hurts. Those are so technical.
Oh. Lo siento.
Lo siento. That means I'm sorry in Spanish. Lo siento. Yes, I know that. See, my Duolingo and my Spanish class is paying off. All right. Well, if no one has questions, can you remind me if you went through IY? I don't know what that means.
Went through what?
Which words not to use with a prospect? Are there some that you shouldn't use?
Wow. Which I would, that's a tough one. I would say as far as possible, avoid the word why.
Why? Okay. Avoid the word why. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got to sign off. We went a little into the OT, but that's okay. Lots of great stuff here. You might want to just hit the replay button and listen to this once or twice. And we will be here. Next week. We're taking the week off. No coffee is for closers next week. So we'll be back the following week. Yes, no coffee is for closers next week. But thank you so much for joining. Again, if you can hit the share button, the like, and spread the word with your friends, this will help everybody in their business to ultimately grow your top line revenues and really how to sell our services to our clients without being pushy, sleazy, and all that other stuff. And we're not here to convince anybody. So if you want to get Ross's book, again, Subtle Words That Sell, the link is down below in the comments, and I hope you guys have an amazing day.